4 years ago, we lost our home, man, while preaching the gospel, while teaching, while trying to still be faithful. We lost everything. The only way you can get through that kind of stuff is fasting and prayer. And we did many, many times. And the fasting and prayer didn't stop the foreclosure. What was the purpose of fasting and praying? We fasted and prayed so that we could clearly hear God's wisdom of how to get through this. Because we did ask, Lord, do you want us to keep the house? Do you, or, keep fighting to keep it? Or do you want us to let it go? So we fasted and prayed on it. And the word that kept coming to us was, let it go. Let it go. So then I'm fighting the embarrassment. What if I let it go? What are people going to think of a pastor that comes here and they lose their house? And the Lord just kept saying, let it go. Let it go. So then I'm warring with myself. Do I go with the word that God is giving me, let it go, or do I fight, or try to save face? The word kept coming, let it go. Then God gave us other strategies. He said, take the money that you would be putting on the house payment, save it. Also, pay off all the other bills and stuff that you have. So he gives you strategy. Now, there are some people that are facing foreclosure. They still got a job. That's the other thing that people don't realize. Most people that are facing foreclosure and going through it, they got good jobs. They got jobs. They still got income coming in. But some of them won't do what they need to do while they're in the midst of the foreclosure. They won't start preparing for the next place you need to move to. They keep right on going on, spending money and, acting like somehow everything is going to work out. They take the money that should be going on the house payment. That's what happens once you start into that process. They won't even take your house payment anymore. It becomes you must pay it all or get out. You must pay all of the money from the back months. They don't take partial payments. They don't make no payment arrangements. If your house payment is $1,000 a month and we're now 4 months later, they want $4,000. And I want no $1,000 and let me catch up later. It's all now. And so the Lord told us, take the money that you would be paying on the house payment, since they won't take any payments, take that money, pay off all your bills, and put the rest in savings. All of this comes from fasting and prayer. Hear me clearly, because God will speak to you. You may not want to do what he's telling you, trying to save face, trying to hold on to your reputation, but do what he's telling you to do. And his instructions to us was let it go, pay bills, save money. And John, it worked out perfectly, because when we let the house go and we found a townhouse, when we got to that townhouse, when we told those people at the townhouse that we were going through a foreclosure, they said, okay, the only thing that we would probably ask you guys to do then, we're going to check your credit, and we're going to probably ask you to make a double deposit. And so when they checked our credit, they found that all our bills were paid and we had a foreclosure. And their words to us was, since your credit was exactly like what you said, all your bills are paid, all you've got is a foreclosure, then that's all we're going to require of you is just to make the double deposit and you can move in. And because we had been saving the money, guess what, John? Just like God said, or we didn't know, well, he didn't say it, but he set us up. We had the money to make a double deposit, and we were able to move. So my family wasn't put out on the street. He prepared us, and that's why many times people, they got a deliverance in their mind, and they're thinking, most people, and we wanted it to be, deliverance going to be, God, somehow you're going to help us keep this house, and money's going to come from somewhere, and you're going to help, and that will be the victory. The victory was God made a way for us to transition out of that house and move into a townhouse. And we lived in that townhouse for 3 years. Even the place that we're living in now, that's not where we moved to first. It was out near Hershey. And then when we found this place that we're in now, when we went and signed, well, first went and looked at it, it was, this place that we're living in now was built by the same company that built the townhouse that we lived in 3 years ago. And when we moved in, always a flow with God. So We were moving into the last unit. They only had one unit available, and they had several people all looking at it. But because we was already living in property that they owned, we were the ones that were picked to move into the place that we're living in now. And here's the best part. The place we're living in now is almost $500 a month less than where we was out at Hershey. So here, see how God will do you? We lost the house. We had to go move into another place for a while, lived there 3 years. Now we moved into a place and it's $500 a month less, closer to our job. So now we're cut down on gasoline and rent. And see what I mean? How God will set you up. And this is out of fasting and prayer. You can't do it any other way. And many believers, unfortunately, don't want to go this path with God. But it does take this. It does take an intimate relationship with Him, talking with Him. Let Him talk to you. There are just certain things that are not going to happen unless you fast and pray. Jesus even said that it was a demonic situation. A young kid was demonized, and his disciples, Jesus' disciples, couldn't cast him out. And they asked the question, Lord, how come we couldn't? And the Lord just told them, well, this kind comes out only by fasting and prayer. And I believe, personally, He was answering two issues. And that was the demonic stronghold that was there comes out by fasting and prayer. It's not the fasting and prayer that does it, but there's a sensitivity you have to God in order to deal with this kind of demonic situation, is what He was saying to him. They need specific direction from the Lord to deal with a demon this stubborn. And also, I believe He was dealing with their lack of faith, because that was the first thing He told them. You don't have any faith. And so fasting and prayer puts you in a position to be able to hear from God, and it builds up your faith and confidence in the Lord. So you're not just looking at the demon. You're not just looking at, even when I say demon, I mean the whole situation. The situation isn't so overwhelming to you that you can't believe God. And fasting and prayer does that for you also. You just become so sensitive to God. And it's hard to do, because I ain't going to act like it's, man, it wants what it wants. Because all of us, you have a picture in your head. Everybody does. You got a picture in your mind of what deliverance is going to look like. Even when we pray and ask the Lord for things, we ask very specifically, some of us. You know, we don't just say, Lord, bless me. We say, Lord, bless me with a 2012 SUV Expedition. You know, we go to the very specific, and I want it to be green, and I want it to have this interior, and we go specific. Because sometimes preachers have told us that. When you ask God for things, you need to be specific. You need to envision. You need to see yourself in that car. You need to see yourself in that house, and speak those things that are not as though they were. And when you go back and read the scripture, that ain't what the people that followed the Lord did. Abraham didn't just wake up one day and say, his name was Abram. He didn't just wake up and go, my name is Abraham, and I'm going to be the father of many nations. No, God spoke that to him. The pattern is God speaks first. I don't speak out nothing that God ain't said. So I can't speak those things that are not as though they were until God tells me that it's so. Then all I'm doing is repeating what He said. Now, where's the faith come in? The faith is that I believe that God actually said this to me. So people have stepped out and said all kinds of stuff, man. And some of us in this room, you may have been there in different places in your life. I've tested the waters. I ain't going to act like I always knew how to do this. I've kind of sometimes just well, I'll see if this is the Lord or not. Lord, if this is you, then you see this story in the Bible with Gideon, a man by the name of Gideon. He's like, Lord, if this is you, I'm going to put this fleece on the ground, and I want all the ground to be wet and the fleece to be dry, and he gets up the next morning, and it's just like that. Okay, I want to be sure. Don't be mad at me, God, but I really want to be sure. This time let it be just the opposite. Let the ground be dry and the fleece be wet. And it was what he said. So sometimes it's okay. God understands where we are. Because the issue is the man wanted to be sure that this is God telling me to take on this battle. Because this is life and death. And I've done that, John. I've done things like, God, if this is you, then let such and such happen. Let such and such be the case. We had a fleece like this, and one of our times we wanted to move back to St. Louis. And so I said, Lord, if you want us to stay in Harrisburg, then I want you to have my brother ask me to speak in our home church. We was going on one of our visits to St. Louis, and so I knew that there was no way in the world. But I set this fleece before the Lord, because I'm like, okay, because really we were gone. It was like, we're ready to go. We're ready to pack up. These people on this job are crazy. This is not working. And so my brother, when I'm usually in town, he don't have me to speak. If he's in town, he speaks. He didn't. I don't.
Knew it was impossible.
I just knew that this was impossible. So I said, Lord, if you want us to stay in Harrisburg, when we get home to St. Louis, have my brother to ask me to speak on that Sunday morning, because I knew that'd be impossible. He never gives up the pulpit when he's in town. Now, he's asked me to speak when he's out of town. If I happen to be in St. Louis and he's out of town, then he'll have me speak. But I knew he would be there. Right after I made that prayer, me and Carol actually prayed that together. He called me the next day and he said, since you're going to be in town, he sure did. Since you're going to be in town, that's going to be a really busy weekend. In fact, I've got to fly out on Monday morning at like a 6 o'clock in the morning flight. So I really need Sunday off. So could you speak while you're in town? And I sent Carol an email on her job, and she emailed me back like, are you sure? Did he mean just get up and say a few words, or do he really want you to speak the whole? She didn't believe. But that's where we were. And so we set a fleece before the Lord. Lord, let such and such happen to really assure us, because Harrisburg, and I don't want to put down Harrisburg by saying this, because this is the kind of warfare and fight that anybody that goes in the name of the Lord faces. I don't want you to feel like this is just Harrisburg, because my brother I've watched him battle this same thing with going to St. Louis. Even though it's his hometown, he had no desire at all to come back to St. Louis. But God said go to St. Louis. So he's had this kind of warfare, like what we've experienced here in Harrisburg. That's what he's had in St. Louis. So all I'm saying to you is, it's like this where whenever God sends you, there's opposition. That's why you have the opposition on your jobs, because you were sent there. So you have the opposition. You have the people that oppose you. But when you know, like you guys have testified today, when you know, God, you sent me here, it's just very different when you know and assured of where God has set you. So God gave us that assurance with that fleece moment. So ever since that time, we've been, right, we're going for it. We're doing this. We're going all the way. God helped us find this building. Family started coming, but it wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been settled. But it started with God takes you where you are, which is what he did with us. This is where we were. He acknowledged where we were. We fasted, we prayed, we fleeced. And some of you have stories like that. I know you do, where it's like, God, if this is you, then let such and such happen tomorrow on my job, or such and such, God, because I really want to be sure that this is you. You're not doing it out of rebellion. It's not rebellion. You're like, I really want to know that this is God, because if I know I'm walking in the will of God, all of you can say that, then no matter what I'm opposed with, you take on this attitude like, y'all didn't hire me, you can't fire me. God put me here. I'm not going nowhere until God allows it. And if he allows it, it's only because there's something else that's going on that I don't know about, and I'm not going to be the loser in this whole situation.